All right, good morning, everyone. I want to thank you all for being here today. Just want to give you a little operational update. As of right now, the dam's outflow is up to 7,250 CFS, and currently its inflow is averaging between 9 and 10,000 CFS. So there's been a lot of talk about maps and where we are, and we want to be very transparent. We want to be very forthcoming with all our information, because we preach that we want our community to be prepared. Well, the best way we can prepare our community is by giving them the information and the tools that they need. But there's a responsibility that comes with giving information. When you give information, it has to be accurate and it has to be precise. The 100-year maps that we saw from FEMA, they're just too broad brush for us. It's not good enough for our residents. So we sat in a room, we said, well, how can we make these better? And I'll tell you what, I have a talented team, and the county has an even more talented team. In the last 2 years, we've been doing nothing but embracing technology. We want to shatter the mold of we've always done it this way and embrace every bit of technology that we can. I challenged my team. I said, how can we do this? How can we make better maps for our residents? And we started brainstorming, and the answer was, well, we do make maps all the time. We make them on wildland fires. And how do we do that? We actually get aerial reconnaissance, and we get ground troops on the ground and actually verifying all our data. So that's exactly what we did. We said, could that work? And everyone just said, well, we've never done that before. And I'll tell you what, nothing makes me happier than hearing the words, we've never done that before, because that's what we should be doing. As firefighters, we're taught to think outside the box, brainstorm. That's what we should be doing, so I love it. So that's exactly what we did. We brought in a drone company, the same one we used over the 4th of July, and they started doing aerial reconnaissance last week. As the river and the CFS was lower, because it hadn't been raised yet, we took measurements at that point. On Sunday and Monday, we took even more measurements as it went up to 7,000. And we started measuring those differentials, and we started making our own maps. And then we put them on, and we plotted them on the map, and then we said, ground troops, go see if it's accurate. And they were spot on. It was amazing. So that's where we are today, is bringing these maps to the citizens of Kern County so that they can make informed decisions and be prepared. I'll tell you, these are just version 1 of our maps. We are constantly going to be updating these maps on our websites so that you guys all have the information you need. And as the flows change, the mapping will change, and we're going to keep pushing these maps out. We'll continuously fly this area, keep checking it on the ground to make sure we have the best information to you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Billy Steers, Deputy Chief Operations, Kern County Fire. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown of the maps that we are utilizing, the Chief was speaking about. So utilizing the UAS, we were able to get live data and map the actual river corridor where the water set along the river. And so with that, on the map, you can see the blue actually represents the actual river and the flow that it was as of yesterday at 7,000 CFS. So as we map it every single day, multiple times a day, we'll be able to update this map, get a better picture of where we're seeing inundation, and then compare that to the inundation maps that we received from the Corps engineers and DWR. So as we got the ground truthing of those maps, we were able to compare those to the inundation maps that we received that were over predicting based on the flows. So we took those maps, overlaid where did we have the most matchup, and this is where we came to with this map that you're looking at now. So you'll see it as a step 1, 2, and 3. The green is on step 1. There is some green overlay as we overlaid the river over the overlay. That's what the projected the river would have looked like. So you can see it stayed within about 80 to 90% accuracy of that area. As you go to the yellow and the orange, what that is predicting and representing is up to 2,000 CFS additional added to the river. So up to 9,000 is where it is. As the river adjusts and we go to 7,500 CFS, we will continue to map that, relook, validate it on the ground, validate what we're seeing in inundation, and then to be able to allow us to utilize those inundation maps and see and update which ones are the most accurate so we can keep staying ahead of the flows and where any of the potential inundation areas of concern are. So primarily right now, we have 75 firefighters in Goodmanville because we're seeing inundation potentials in Goodmanville, Choctaw, and around in Manor. So we're prioritizing and doing point protection of structures in there, utilizing sandbags. So they're in place now, making sandbags in the area, and we'll continue to work the whole entire stretch of the Kern River as we update these maps and continue to find additional areas. So that's the operational update for today.
Good morning. Deputy Chief Zachary Wells, Kern County Fire. If I can get the snowmelt map behind me. So I know the public and everyone is aware that we have a lot of snow up in the Sierras, and that snow will turn into water and come down through the Lake Isabella reservoir, through the dam, and through the Kern River. And so we are constantly looking each and every day for more data. And what we do know is data is a prediction, and these predictions change each and every day based on weather pattern, based on the inflows and outflows of the Kern and what's coming out of the dam. So we're working with all the stakeholders, with the Water Master, with the City of Bakersfield, the County of Kern, and the Department of Water Resources to update our predictions. And so our predictions are only good as the model and the information that we have available. So each and every day as new weather data comes in, as the CFS comes from predicted to actual, we will continue to train the information that we have to provide accurate information to the public. So one of the things that we know that is constantly being looked at is the CFS being outflow from the dam. And that's currently moved from 7,000 earlier in the week to around 7,200, 7,300. And it's a variable. It is constantly in motion. And what we know is the level that outflow is at, the higher that it goes, the more water we're pushing out of Lake Isabella Reservoir, so that we can reduce the amount of time that we're at Gross Pool, and that we extend the time from the date where we have water being controlled through the outflow and before it enters in the spillway. So this information is very variable based on weather, and so as the weather heats up, we know more snow melt will come out of the Sierras. But this chart that I have behind me is what we look at and where we're basing our models off of, and will be updated as we get more information from our stakeholders. So as we control the outflows and we work with the Water Master and we work with the operations, the boots on the ground, what generates the lines on the map based on the information that we're getting in real time, it's a fine balance between predictions and real time. And so that's where we get the information and how we hope to share with the public so that everyone can make informed decisions. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Ryan Alsop. I'm the county's Chief Administrative Officer. I want to thank you all for being here today. I also want to thank our fire chief, all of our fire chief's command staff, and all of the men and women of the fire department for their leadership, not just here at the EOC in planning and strategizing, but the work that they're doing right now. As the chief, or as somebody earlier noted, we've got around 80 fire personnel who are out on the river working with residents. If you go out there, you'll see them. Their equipment is there, helping not only manufacture sandbags, but place sandbags, helping residents do that. And that is going to be the status quo for the coming days and probably over the next week. So just really grateful for the chief and his team. We had a great meeting last night down in the Goodmanville Road neighborhood. We were invited down there by a couple of property owners who hosted us and really took the role of putting out an invitation. They had a listserv for the community, and we had about 150 or so people that joined that meeting. They were from the areas that are immediately east of Manor, those neighborhoods there, all throughout that Goodmanville Road area, both sides of the river, Choctaw Valley residents. We had some folks from the Rancheria road area that were there. And that was a value-added meeting. We shared these maps with them ahead of time, even though we're officially providing them to you all and the rest of the public today. Gave them a really good sense of what to expect in the immediate days ahead and potentially weeks ahead, and answered a lot of questions. Obviously, they have a lot of questions, and did a really good job trying to get them the answers that they needed. Again, our fire personnel are out there today and are continuing to answer questions and work with homeowners. We will have a dashboard, a website that is a sort of a clearinghouse for all information related to our planning and preparation for potential inundation, and it will be updated on a daily basis. We will all of these maps that you're seeing up here are going to be getting updated, whether on a daily basis, certainly on a weekly basis. Those new maps will be posted to the website, kerncounty.com. Simply go there. That's our homepage. It'll be easy to find. It'll be interactive. People can provide information to us. They can get the information that they need, phone numbers and other things. We'll have videos. This press conference will be up there. We'll have everything that we do related to this will be up there. Lastly, I wanted to say that we had an all-hands meeting in the EOC shortly before you arrived this morning. Started at 9 o'clock. This room was full of people, and we had a screen full of people from all over the area. We had the Corps of Engineers participating. We had the Water Master participating. Everybody, Superintendent of Schools, everybody was here. And I want to reiterate something that Zach had said earlier. The goal of the Water Master and the Corps in terms of outflows on the river is averaging releases at 7,500, at or around 7,500. At times above that, at times below that, but keeping an average of 7,500 outflow out of the river. The strategy is keeping it there and averaging those flows over the course of the next many weeks and months avoids having to spike and release more out of the dam, and that's where we're at. That is currently what we're planning for. Now, all of that could change, and with weather events and other things that are happening, many different variables. But that is the plan, and I want to make sure that that's clear for residents because they're wanting to know that. So. I think unless the sheriff has something, I think we're going to open it up. Glad you're here. Glad the city of Bakersfield is here. City of Bakersfield is participating in our EOC briefings. We have representation from fire, representation from the police department, and they were out at our meeting last night down in this area. They spoke to the residents, so we're pleased to have their participation and partnership in this. And with that, I think we're going to open it up to questions.
Sure, I'll have Chief Sears do that. He is, as we finish this press conference, going to go walk each map individually, so that gives everyone time to reset and do it that way. But Chief Sears?
Yeah, so as you're looking at the map, so the yellow in that step one is the next level. As we're watching the rivers flow, over another 1,000 to 2,000 CFS increase is what that prediction model is looking at. So we took the DWR and the Corps' inundation maps. Once we ground truth what we were looking at actually on the ground versus what was predicted, the maps were extremely over predicting what was coming. So we utilized those maps with the experts with the river, and we're overlaid those of what we're really seeing on the ground, and then utilizing that to predict the next low areas that are along the river that potentially could have inundation. So the yellow is the first level, and then the orange would be the next level of inundation. Roughly in that area. So as we map the river the next several days, as we get the influxes of 7,500 and those, we'll be able to measure actually where the river banks are, and then see how well is that matching up to that. And if it is underproducing, then we will adjust those maps. If it's over predicting, then we're getting prepared and we're staying ahead of it. So that's really what it'll be, a daily basis as we're readjusting those, as it's very dynamic with the river.
So the chart that we put up earlier looks like it's slightly old information in the date. Is that chart going to be available publicly? They can see there's 9,200 CFS coming through here, or it's that area here, per that map, and that's, again, old information, that chart, that's old information. So is that, as you get it?
Yeah, great question. So this chart is produced monthly, and we know that the predictions are linear, and the real world is not linear. So we'll continue to work with our stakeholders to update it. As Chief Steers says, we're constantly looking to ground truth what is predicted, and with reality, which is always variable based on the outflow that's coming. So this information, we know. All models are wrong. Some are useful, so we take what is useful out of them to help guide our day-to-day actions, and then we're constantly reevaluating what our understanding is to see what's on the ground. Because no matter if it's in an Excel table or if it's on a map, really what matters is what's happening in the ground in these communities for our citizens, and that's where we're trying to use these predictions to help provide something useful for the boots on the ground, for the community members that have these concerns.
Your 7,500 threshold, CFS threshold, will that be low enough that Highway 178 Canyon is not compromised?
So we've been speaking with Caltrans, and they're aware of the spots that are low in the canyon, and they're watching them daily. As Chief Steers told me the other day, as we jumped from 6,300 to 7,000, he only saw anywhere from 6 to 8 inches rise. So that's still, a foot or two before it hits the highway. So I don't want to make any predictions. I'll leave that to Caltrans, but as of right now, it's open.
You mentioned for every thousand, for every 1,000 cubic feet per second increase in outflows, does that equate to roughly a raising of the elevation of the river by a foot? What per 1,000 CFS?
That's a hard one because it depends on topography. So if you look at these maps, there's towards Goodmanville, the river gets very wide. So you only see 1 to 2 inches there. Where the river gets very narrow, you could see up to a foot. So that's kind of our rule of thumb that we're telling residents.
And what did you tell the residents last night in the Goodmanville area, about what level the river has to rise before you start acting on it?
Yeah, and specifically, you're talking about at what point will we start initiating evacuation warnings and those types of warnings out there. So we did talk briefly about some of those. Right now, I have a whole team that is working through management action points and really looking at what is a threshold for evacuations if needed. So all of those are based off of life threat to the community, and that's really what we base those off of. As we see through the inundation here, it may be an isolated handful of homes because they're inundated or water's all the way around them and it's unsafe to get into their homes. We would initiate them for those isolated areas. We don't foresee wide scale unless we had catastrophic failure or some other incident that happens. So those are always going to be things we're pre-planning and planning large for, but also only reacting to what actually is needed. So I think at this point, I think I would have a bag packed already. So, and I mean that we should always be ready. They know part of our conversation is telling them, this is what's coming, this is what we're predicting, and this is what the river's doing now. You should be ready right now. This is that initial conversations or that kind of that pre-warning. Once we see higher levels, and it's hard to say an actual CFS because we haven't seen what 7,500 really does in its spread. We are predicting those areas, so I could see at 8,000. We're definitely going to be looking in those yellow and orange areas that those are potential areas. But like any evacuation, we'll have a trigger or a management action point. Once it hits it or gets close to it, we reevaluate. Is it really what we anticipated? Then we make a decision based on that and push forward. I think those are good numbers to look at because historically that's a very high number for our river. And so at that point, we're starting to look at very historical data, no near-term knowledge of that other than the historical data out there. So I think those are good numbers to be always prepared and get ready and have a plan as we ask all our community members, whether it be the fire season or any other natural disaster, have a plan, be ready.
So, because of the spillway, which the Army Corps has said it's probably going to go over at least one of the spillways, not two of the spillways, how do we know what the CFS, and they talk to you about how they're going to be able to measure that? At some point, one of the spillways,
Yeah, so we've had extensive conversations about the spillway with the Corps of Engineers and how do they manage that flow as it comes over the spillway. So their anticipation is that it will only come over the service spillway. As it comes through the service spillway, which is the spillway we've all known before they built the new one, the service spillway continued to operate. As it comes over, they will adjust the gates of the main dam based on how much flow is coming down the spillway versus how much they let out of the gates of the dam. And so as you get a foot of water, say we have a foot of water coming over the spillway, the lake actually rises, the storage rises in the reservoir as it spreads and gets larger. So you still have that additional spillway and control. That's how they control it in that format. As the water comes, they feather it back and forth is what they do. So they adjust based on if there's 1,000 CFS coming through the spillway, they adjust their gates down to the 6,500 so they can stay at that 75 if that's where we're at.
We heard this morning they want to average 7,500. That's the goal. If it gets to 8,000, Jim, we're going to be back in this room having another conversation.
were some of the residents, I understand that people from Oildale attended the Goodwinville meeting last night, and this is hearsay because I wasn't there, but some of the numbers that were going around were 10,000, 15,000 cubic feet per second. What scenario was being laid out there, and were they told that, it's a good practice to have a go down?
Those were not numbers that were talked in there. These are the numbers that we are getting from the Corps and from the water districts as the routing modeling that Chief Wells was talking about. It really only shows up to around that 9,000 to 10,000 range. If we stayed at 7,000 CFS with that, that's why they're looking at the 7,500 CFS to keep that average across. That was not, but there was individuals from Oildale and different parts of the community up along and asked several questions, and we were able to answer those.
I was at the meeting last night. I don't recall. I'll copy what the chief just said. We certainly never mentioned 15, and there might have been a discussion about 10. That graph that we showed, that Chief Wells was talking to. The highest that graph goes, that is a projected day-by-day outflow of the dam, all the way between now and August. The highest it goes is 9,200 CFS. It doesn't even get to 10. Now, again, things could change, but in order to avoid getting to 9,200 and getting up north of 8,000 CFS, again, the Corps of Engineers and the Water Master are planning on averaging flows at 7,500 through the summer. That is the plan. And going up to 7,500, we're at 73, that are around 73 now. Going up to 7,500, the expectation is, based on current projections, is you avoid having to spike up to 8 and beyond, and certainly getting into 9. Now, in 1983, this month, the inflows coming in at First Point on data that I looked at were north of 9,300 CFS. That was a different, completely different event at the time. The Water Master has told me that that is a completely different event than this event. This event is not something to not be concerned with and not be watching out for, but it is not a 1983 event based on the information that they're looking at. You'll have to ask Mark. I don't know. That's what he told me. Oh yeah, they're pull-offs. The river's different, right? It's deeper, wider. There's pull-offs. There's more development in the area. The topography's different along the river. There are a whole bunch of different factors, but you should talk to him about it. But I wanted to reiterate the point that the 7,500 CFS, where they want to keep it at and around, is long-term in it's purposeful to avoid having to get up past that. And Jim, to your point, residents, yeah, if you're out on the river, you're like, hey, what does this look like? People out on the river, they're looking at this every day. They're measuring it. Property owners have sticks in the river. They're doing stick measurements. They got a pretty good eyeball and understanding of their property, where the river is now, and what these maps are showing. If it goes up to 7,500, what does that mean? They're at 7,000 now. What does that look like? We talked about that last night. You heard from Chief Steers that, did I promote you there, or is it Chief Steers? Okay, sorry. I just want to make sure I'm getting titles right. Chief Steers talked last night about what that means, inches to a foot. Property owners can eyeball what that looks like on their properties, and they're able, again, utilizing the 80 personnel that we have out there, making sandbags, delivering sandbags, shoring up infrastructure that may be in the path of that inches to a foot and a half, shoring those facilities up. But that was the discussion last night, and I think people went away with a better understanding of their situation and the situational awareness for them and their future. I think they slept a little bit better, frankly, last night, getting some information. But our plan is to keep it up and keep beating the drum and make sure that we're giving you the latest and greatest detail. So we were told today that there's a cooling trend starting Monday by the National Weather Service, just to let you know. And so, the weather variable, right? It goes up and down. These flows, that chart that you saw, were all based on, I would assume, the very best meteorologists that could be brought together to predict weather for the next 45 or 50 days. Now that's not always spot on, but they probably among us, they're probably the best people to do that. You have hydrologists, meteorologists all working on this, and yes, it takes into account historical weather patterns and temperatures and all of that. They put that together, but to your point, we could have a monsoonal weird rain event in the Sierras. At high elevations, we could have weird changes in any of those typical weather patterns that skew the data one way or the other. But based on right now, what May 8th, and we'll get another one soon, I think. This is the best estimate. It is DWR.
Seasonal
Yeah, we didn't hear that today.
So yeah, I'll speak to that, and this will be kind of the end, and then we're going to actually do one-on-ones for everybody. But what we heard today from Hanford, local, is that they're expecting a cooling trend next week for our temperatures to come down. I think if you look on your Apple phones right now, I think it's going to say the same thing. You're going to see a degree drop starting next week. And so what the point is, this is just, it's all variable. You know, it could be on the average like you're speaking to, but as of next week, we're seeing a cooling trend, which will lower the snow melt, and then we're doing this juggling like we always do, constantly moving. Yeah, it was high 80s, mid to high 80s. So on a closing note, I just want to remind everyone that there is no evacuation warning in place. There are no evacuation orders in place. These maps are intel for people to be prepared. This is how we're going to direct our ground troops on the ground, so we can start deploying sandbags, so that we hope that we never have to get to a point to put an order in place. That's our job. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.
Regardless of the numbers that you've seen up here or that the public may see, have a plan. This is not an exact science. Everybody that lives along the river, everybody that has large animals along the river, have a plan that gives you 8 or 10 hours to take action, because this is new ground for most of us, and we don't know what the weather's going to do. It's depending on who you listen to, we don't know how fast the snow is going to melt. We're just giving you our best estimate from the experts, but have a plan just like any other event where you're ready to go.
And just if we could get your help, Jim, and the rest of the news organizations that are here, the best thing that residents could do to help us and help themselves to be prepared for an emergency beyond always having, I have a go bag in my car, beyond being, having a go bag and being, registering for Ready Kern, and that is at readykern.com. You Google Ready Kern and it takes you there. You sign up. This is how folks get. We exercise Ready Kern a lot. We have in the past, a couple times in the past several weeks for various places. This is how residents who may be subject to, we always put out an evacuation warning, like, hey, we're thinking about doing this down the road, but we're letting you know early. That would be something that would go out on Ready Kern. And Ready Kern is text messaging, email, hardline at your house, all of that. You can put all those numbers in. That is the very best way people can get real-time information in a real emergency. And we're not in an emergency right now, but get prepared for one, whether it's an earthquake or a fire or flooding. Ready Kern, I just want to put a word out so that you could all help us promote that in your broadcasts. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.